Next, I'd like to bring up Steve Greenfield, who's our Green Party candidate for the House of Representatives in New York's 19th District. Steve's been a volunteer firefighter for 16 years, served as secretary and delegate to the Ulster County Firemen's Association for most of that time, a two-term elected school board member, and has held numerous appointed positions with the town of New Paltz and the school district, where he currently serves as a community member of the Legislative Action Committee, which he chaired while on the board. Steve's married with 3 teenage children, and the family belongs to the Jewish congregation of New Paltz, where Steve serves as a de facto fire safety officer. Welcome, Steve Greenfield.
Thank you, Caleb. Hi, I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. I want to thank the socialists for stepping up and joining in a unity ticket. I want to say that I am here to endorse candidates for office. I am here to endorse Howie Hawkins for President of the United States. Come on, give it up for Howie. All right, that's the event we're having here today. My district is the 19th Congressional District. If you go right across the bridge to Rensselaer, you're in my district. If you go just to the south to Columbia County and Greene County, you're in my district. If you go up to Rensselaer County, you're in my district. So hopefully some of you people are in the district, or at the very least know people who are in the district. And I want to start out by saying, since we are all blacked out by the media, every single one of you has to go home and commit to using your own outreach systems, your social media, everything you've got, to send links, to reach out to people. Believe it or not, you even have to put the fundraising links on there too, because none of us are able to get media coverage because as if we're newsworthy, and none of us have the money to buy the news coverage the way other people can, because they are offering policies that refinance the donations that the major institutional donors give them, and that's exactly how the system works. You know, I go back about close to 20 years. I go back 19 years with Howie. He's one of the first people I met when I joined the Green Party when I moved up to the Hudson Valley. And one of the things that I really enjoy about the Green Party, and one of the things I've enjoyed about discussing things with Howie, is that we discuss what a just world would look like. We discuss what a healthy world would look like. We discuss, you know, what a just America would look like. We discuss things about how if you're not talking about workplace democracy, then you're not talking about democracy at all. You know, everybody I know in the Green Party starts out designing what it is they want to do by first engaging in a rigorous examination of what justice would look like, what democracy would look like, what a clean environment would look like, what a transition to renewable energy would look like, what that would look like. Democrats and Republicans, they don't have those conversations, ever. They get people together and say, how can I trick this constituency into voting for me? How can I trick that constituency into voting for me? How much money can I raise? Can you put together a foundation? I gotta tell you, if I have to watch that video of Michelle Obama telling everybody what a great guy Harvey Weinstein is one more freaking time, my head is gonna explode. So it's a good thing it's not happening right now in front of me, because then you'd all have to witness that. You know, somebody was just mentioning, Bob was mentioning the wildfires. Hold on a second, I'm gonna let these firefighters come through here. How about a hand for Albany Fire? Everybody on that truck is a public worker. There was not a single private sector worker on that truck. Not a single private sector dollar went to buy that truck. That truck was spec'd by public employees. It was those employees that are riding on it that are gonna solve that incident. Were trained by public trainers. They use public equipment. They draw a public paycheck. They're in a union, and they get a pension, and they get health care. So let's give it up for the Albany Fire Department and what they're doing right now. You don't see any private sector employees going out and doing what they're doing. Some of them might not be coming back. You don't get that from Democrats and Republicans, because when fire departments were started, they were private. You paid for them voluntarily, just like your health insurance today. You got it through your homeowner's insurance. And then the insurance companies made deals with different vendors of fire service, you know, that whatever made them the highest profit. And then by the 1880s, everybody all over the world, including in the United States, stopped that system, and they stopped it because it didn't work. And it didn't work for some very obvious reasons. For one thing, if you have two houses and they're contracting two different fire companies and they both get the alarm, who's using the fire hydrant? Another reason it wasn't working. The people next door to you, they don't think that there's much risk of a fire and they can't afford it, and so they didn't buy fire insurance. Their house is on fire. You own fire insurance. Guess what? Nobody's coming to put out their fire, and so your house is going down too. That's how the system used to work, and everybody said, what kind of nonsense is this? Cities are burning to the ground. And so everybody switched over to municipal fire departments. We have the same issue right now. It's all about the framing. I ask people all the time, why is it that that when I get off a fire truck, I don't ask anybody to see their fire insurance card? We get off the truck, we resolve the incident, we leave, we go back home, and we don't send anybody a bill. But when 911 goes off and sends the rescue squad for a medical emergency, they show up with a clipboard. They're good people. I work with them every day. They wish that it didn't have to be that way. They show up with a clipboard. They're going to take you to the hospital, don't get me wrong, even if you don't have insurance. They're going to work on you. But when you get out of the hospital, you're going to find yourself with an $1,800 bill. And then, you're going to have to choose whether you want to send your kid to college or whether you want to get out of debt to the rescue squad and the hospital. And that's as ridiculous as the old firefighting system ever was. In fact, it's even more ridiculous because the stakes are much higher. If you don't go to the doctor and you're infectious, you're going to walk around and you're going to carry that to other people. So, when people talk about socialism as being the enemy of capitalism, I know that a lot of us like to think of that from a theoretical standpoint, right? It's a completely different way of approaching the distribution of resources, right? And so we theorize on that in a very big way. But the enemy of capitalism is not really socialism. The enemy of capitalism, if you know anything about capitalism, the enemy of capitalism is monopoly. And that's what we've got here. And I'm going to tie that back to what I said when I started about how Greens and socialists and other people from the left always initiate their control. I look at what the proposals that I see Democrats and Republicans making in these scenarios, and I see them saying that we're going to expand Obamacare because this is some kind of bridge to complete universal health care. Well, let me tell you about that bridge, okay? In 2008, Harvard did a study and found that there were 45,000 Americans dying every year due to lack of health insurance. Yale and Lancet did a study last year that showed that now that Obamacare has been in action for 10 years, we're now losing 68,000 people a year due to lack of health insurance. This was not a bridge to universal health care. That was a great slogan that got over on everybody. It was a bridge to increase death. Fewer people have been able to afford primary care every year Obamacare has existed. They tell us that they're going to get their way to a Green New Deal by temporarily shifting over to fracking because fracking is a bridge that's better than other forms of fossil fuel we're currently using. Except the largest growing component of greenhouse gas emissions right now is leaking methane from fracking sites. Again, it's a bridge to death, and they're building power plants that run on fracked gas like Dance Camera down in Newburgh, like Cricket Valley over in my district in Dutchess County. My Democrat opponent, Antonio Delgado, he supports the operation of these plants even though they have 40-year lifespans. When is this bridge going to happen? After there's no glaciers left. I have 3 teenage kids. They're 19, 18, and 16. I ask them if they talk about this kind of thing among their friends. They say to me, what are you talking about? It's the only thing we talk about. Okay? We older people that have been witnessing this happening, I know most of us here have been resisting this our entire lives. But our generation owes the younger generation to keep our organizing skills in place. They have the drive and the desire to do this, but we have to remain integrated with them and provide to them our skills and our experience and draw from them their energy because they don't have any life to look forward to. I'm going to close with just this one last thing because I really want to hear from Howie. So much of my consciousness has been formed over the years by conversations with Howie and reading the publications he made and watching videos of conferences where he speaks. And so that's why I was such a hearty supporter of him becoming the candidate this year to carry the Green Party banner and the eco-socialist banner forward, as he's been trying to do since 2010, and getting us a ballot line here in New York. Let me just mention that too before I close, which is that this ballot line issue is a really big deal. People keep telling me, and by the way, I'm one of the people who did it. I've served in local office. I've run for the lower positions and I've won them. I was on Jason West's campaign committee twice. I've elected the first Greens that were ever elected to office in this state by working my ass off to make sure that would happen, and then making sure that I could be the best public servant that I could when I got elected to my positions, which were overseeing public sector positions. We can't run for those lower positions. You see the paradox there. We can't run for lower positions if we don't have a ballot line. And the Democrats and Republicans are in complete control of whether or not we have a ballot line. We don't want running for president to be the only way we can run for the lower offices that we can actually win. That's just what we've been handed. And as long as that's what we've been handed, we in New York in particular have to look at, for the time that it's going to continue to exist, that the Electoral College is giving us a gift. Here in New York, Democrats win statewide offices by 1.5 million to 3.2 million votes. If you believe in what's being set up here today, and you have friends who believe in what's being set up here today, then you need to tell them that any vote that they vote for a Democrat or a Republican are the only actual wasted votes in this state, and that if you vote for Green and keep that line in place, then people are going to be able to run for town board, people are going to be able to run for school board, people are going to be able to run for water commissioner and the different positions that we need to save the environment, to provide health care, and to gather the experience we need so that by the time we're running for Congress, like I am, shockingly enough, between the Democrat incumbent and the Republican who's never run for office before either, I'm still the most qualified candidate for Congress in my district that's on a ballot this year. That's a devastating reality to have to face, because the news won't cover me because I don't have the kind of money that the other candidates have, and that's how they decide if I get on the ballot. And so I want to close with this one thing about why I vote Green, and I'm going to tell you, no matter how controversial this may come off, if I were living in a purple state, I would still be voting Green. Without hesitation. And I would be telling other people, do whatever it is you think that you have to do, but I'm going to explain to you why I'm voting Green even in a purple state. And that's where I'm going to close, even after having described to you that we have the leeway here in this state to vote without that particular concern. The reason is that when you tell somebody, you've got my vote, and then as soon as you're elected, I'm going to pressure you to do things that I did. I'm stopping in the middle of that sentence. Their ears shut down after the first half of your sentence. If you're going to mention votes at all, it has to be the second part of your sentence. It has to be by saying, and you're going to have to commit to those things if you want to have my vote. Okay? The strategy that progressive Democrats have been using since I first watched the Get Clean for Gene campaign get overthrown by riot police in Chicago in 1968 in favor of a war candidate who hadn't even been in the primaries. Howie and Bob, there's a couple of us here old enough to have witnessed that, remember that when that happened, and we've been watching it happen again and again for the 52 years since we watched that happen. As soon as you say you have my vote, the conversation is over, because they know that even if you pressure them and they welcome you into their office, and then you can say, hey, I had access, and then 4 years from now, you're going to vote for them again. You have already told them that there is nothing they can do that is going to cost them your vote. And as soon as you've said that, your hope of having any of your issues legislated into American policy or New York State policy is over. It's over right then and there. And so I want to tell everybody right now that you have to tell everybody and remind people, use your networks. We don't have access to the press. We need people power. Use whatever it is you've got. Use your own voice to get this message out there and say that everyone's doing it backwards. If you weren't doing it backwards, things would have changed by now. And you know what? They have changed. They've changed by moving ever further to the right. Bill Clinton did things to organize labor, the environment, and financial regulation in this country that Ronald Reagan couldn't have dreamed of doing. Andrew Cuomo did things in this state with the 2% tax cap and education cuts and the Wall Street tax rebate that Republicans couldn't have dreamed of doing. And it's still happening because every time one of them runs for office, progressive-minded people say, I'm very worried about the outcome of this election, so you've got my vote, but I'm going to need to be able to talk to you as soon as you win. Okay? And that's backwards. The only way to make this happen is to tell those people, you absolutely do not have my vote. You're going to have to get down on your knees and beg for my vote. Don't talk to me about any of your goddamn bridge policies, because we know where they go. We're done falling for it anymore. We've had it. We've had it. People are dying. People are dying in California. I had to hump up a hill, 400-foot rock scramble. I'm 59 years old. 3 days in a row, I had to hump up with tools and hose a 400-foot high rock scramble in Mohonk, down where I live. And I don't even get health insurance. What kind of nonsense is that? What kind of crap goes on in this state and this country because we keep telling people, you have my vote no matter what? We're going to flip that script. We're going to tell these people, you're going to beg for my vote, not with one policy, with 10 policies, with 20 policies. When I ran for this office 2 years ago, I had people coming up to me begging me to drop out of the race because I'm going to draw votes away from the Democrat and possibly help the Republican win. And I issued this challenge to every one of them, and I issue it again today. Go on my website. If you find a single policy on my website that you can find on my Democratic opponent's website, I will drop out of this race. Guess how many emails I got back? My Democratic opponent then, as now, had many elements of his platform that were identical to those of the Republican. My Democratic incumbent's voting record in Congress differentiates from Nancy Pelosi's only when he crosses party lines to vote with Trump. He just got an award from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for being the most likely to cross party lines Democrat. They love that shit because it kills us and our families and our futures. So from now on, everybody get out there and understand the dynamic. The only way to get what you want is to vote for it. Elections, politics are about power, and there are two sides to the power coin. One side of the power coin is to aggregate it to yourself and work for it and build it and achieve it. But we're not working in a vacuum. There are other people that are working to do that as well, and obviously they have hundreds of billions of dollars with which to do it and control over the institutions of public relations and publicity. And 19 is transmitted, and how much worse than the flu it is. Except Bob Woodward knew that 6 months ago, and he didn't tell us it until only 3 weeks ago because he was maximizing book sales. Bob Woodward, Donald Trump, they're doing the exact same thing, and they're doing it from the exact same motive. Self-interest. Capitalist. Yeah, I'll say it. Capitalist self-interest. Because that's what capitalism incentivizes. Do whatever works best for you, no matter how many other people it harms. And so Bob Woodward is the man of the hour right now for doing the exact same thing and for the exact same reasons that Donald Trump did it. And that'll never happen if Howie Hawkins is president, and it'll also stop happening the day that Howie Hawkins, even if he doesn't become president, it'll stop happening the day that, like Eugene Debs and Norman Thomas in an earlier era, start getting enough votes that the people who do those things have to worry that they're going to lose power if they keep doing it. And so I encourage you to vote green in a blue state, vote green in a red state, vote green in a purple state. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you my good friend and someone I would really love to be president of the United States, Howie Hawkins.